Getting saved? What are you talking about when you're talking about getting saved? I talked to a fellow one time, told me he'd gone to church all of his life. I mentioned being born again to him. He said, I never heard of it. I talked about people getting saved, and they said, what are you talking about? I'm talking about getting saved from a life of sin. Because if you're not saved, if you're still in the life of sin and degradation, and your life consists of misery and ungodliness that sin brings, I'm here this morning to tell you that I'm no better than you are, except I've got Jesus Christ, and you can have him too. Christ just didn't pick out this little bunch at Hickory Grove to get saved. There's people saved all over the world. If you could hear some of the testimonies that are given in this church at times, things that they were hooked on, things they couldn't give up. But that time came and that day came when they said, I've had it up to here with the world. Devil, I've had it up to here with you. And I know that I'm never going to get where I want to go doing what I'm doing. And I'm going to take a chance on going down somewhere to that church. I'm going to see what they're like. I'm going to find Jesus Christ one way or another. I've got to get out of this or I'm not going to make it. Folks, listen, unless you get out of the pyramid of sin, you're never going to make it. I can tell you that. And I don't tell you that in a mean voice. I don't tell you that to say I'm goody two-shoes. I make mistakes. I have faults. I have failures just like everybody else. And brother, when you're willing to come before God and before people and admit that you're not Mr. Perfect, then you have pleased God. Because if you don't, you're going to carry that stuff around. It's going to hinder you. It's going to hinder your testimony. So let's just bring it out in the open and tell us and may it speak the truth that I couldn't make it till sundown in this world unless Jesus Christ and his grace and his mercy and his power and his blood was within me. I couldn't make it till sundown without him. The moment that I'd give him up would be the moment I would be captured again by the sinful spirit and the sinful nature, and it'd be the moment that I would go back to those places that I came from and seeking rest, but I would find none. Do you know in the Bible about the person who left Christ and he went out and away from him, and it said he went out into dry places. He went, listen, let me tell you, the world might look like it's an oasis. It might look like it's got all the pleasure and all the enjoyment that you'll ever need in life, especially the young people. You just can't wait to go out there and wiggle your toes in that cesspool of sin. But the problem is the devil has you blinded. Would you go into swimming in a pool that had rattlesnakes? Would you go swimming in a pool where there's alligators? Would you go swimming in a pool where the dirt was floating around on top and underneath and all through it? Would you take your clean body and put it in that pool, in that cesspool of dirt? You say, preacher, you're crazy to even ask such a question. No, we wouldn't do that. Yes, but just suppose you were blind and you wanted to take a dip. Well, then you might just go on and jump in that place unless somebody told you what was there. You wouldn't know the difference until you'd been snake bit, until you'd caught some disease, until in that pool of a quagmire of sin and dirtiness and filthiness, you wouldn't realize it until somebody told you that that's where you are. How can they preach without a preacher? How can he preach lest he be sent? Folks, I'm here to tell you today that if you're lost in the quagmire of sin and you're swimming around in there blind, there's things going to get a hold of you that's going to be very hard to get wash off. There's going to be stains from that dirt and that filth that's going to be very hard to wash off. There's people today that are walking around with sins and sickness of iniquity when they thought they knew all there was to know. They thought us old hillbilly preachers don't know anything when we say that when you commit an immoral sin, you sin against your own body. I wondered what that meant a few years ago, or several years ago. I didn't understand what it meant. But as I went on through life, and as I learned, and as I saw with my own hands, as I gave treatment for it when I was in Korea, for the things that sin like that can do to your body. Friend, let me tell you something. One innocent mistake, maybe just one time, I'll try it. One time can ruin you for the rest of your life and ruin your health as long as you live upon earth, and it can bring you down to the pits of despair, and there's something that doctors and medicines can't do much for. So it's better to keep yourself clean even as you're a sinner. I've heard people say, well, if you're going to sin, you might as well just go out and be the best one you can be. I'm telling you this morning that if you're walking in sin, stay away as much of it as you can. I know that without Christ you're not saved. I know without the Lord you're still going to go do it. But let me tell you something. When the devil brings up another one, that's one just to drag you deeper. You're already bound by enough. And if you can, within your own power, don't you go any deeper if you're planning on coming to the Lord, because there are stains and scars that will be with you even after you get saved. Now God cleansed your heart and He cleansed your soul, inside and out. You're pure, you're perfect in the sight of God. But yet those wounds that were made are healed. God healed them. But yet you can put scars on your body, in your mind, while you're in sin, that can never be taken away. Those scars will be there. I've got scars upon my body from working in acid where I work. I spilled caustic soda on me. I've got a place on my foot. I've got scars on my hand. I can show you they're there. They're healed. And some folks might see them and say, Charlie, where'd you get that scar? I got it from carelessly fooling around with something that was dangerous. Where can you get scars from sin upon your body? You can get them for carelessly slipping around and sinning around in places and cesspools where it's dangerous. Stay away from them. Don't fellowship with people that go there. Don't listen to it when they pour thoughts into your head how great it is. Because I guarantee you, you'll live the rest of your life regretting that you ever failed God even that one time. But now let me tell you the good news. If you're that way this morning and you're not saved, you've never been converted to Christ, you don't know what it's like to be saved. Oh, there's people got the audacity and they're so puffed up. I'm pretty sure I don't need to go to church to live for the Lord. Let me tell you something. You've got a devil's big head. I'm telling you, if you need to be in the house of God, you need to be with God's people. I need to be in the house of God. I need to be with God's people, because if I'm not there before very long, their thoughts from God get a little harder to think about. They get just a little bit colder. I'm telling you today, folks, if there was ever a time when you needed to hang on to God and hang on to the people of God and fellowship with the people of God, it's the day in which we're living, because the time is going to come before long. We won't worry about whether somebody goes to the Methodist church or the Pentecostal church or the Baptist church or wherever they go. Let me tell you, the days are about upon us. You will be glad just to find somebody who says, I know Jesus Christ, and you'll have fellowship with them. And you won't argue about who's sanctified and who's not, who speaks in tongues and who don't. That won't mean a thing. Brother, it'll just mean that you've got the privilege to talk to somebody that knows the same Jesus that you know. It may not be in a fancy church like this. It may not be this many in a gathering. Because when the laws keep getting worse than what they are now, and believe me, they will,